into this hui with the karakia.
Yes, Atamaria Kote. Nā reira e tuaki nei, I rau te mari tō tātou matuatarangi mihi kawana. E mihi mai oha ki au koutou ki a tātou ko hui mai nei. Nā reira, I ngā member o tēnei committee, anu te mihi ki au koutou, me ngā kaimahi o tēnei rohe o te matau Māui, ka anu te mihi ki au koutou. Nā reira, ki noi tātou. We might do our council one,
The takatahau.
eh? So, whakataka ka hau, whakataka ka hau, tōna,
Kia mā, ki nā ki uta,
mā
kia mā
tarataki te ai.
E hi a ki ana, te atakura, e tio, e huka, e hau, ti hei, mauri ora.
Ora, nā reira, e te matua ka harawa, hangi te atua, e nā ka hau ki roto ki tēnā o mātou, waka tōngia te wairua tapu hei a whena, hei tohu I a mātou, mahi katoa ko I klati hoki tō mātou ariki.
Thank you, Api. Much appreciated. Now, do we have any apologies?
We do. We have apologies from Councillors Keith Price and Chance Tumata Clark from Wairoa and from Mayors Kirsten Wise and Craig Little.
Someone like to move that those apologies be received?
Lateness from Councillor Buddo,
Oh, and for Nicholas from, okay.
stuck on the expressway.
I've got Angela here, just online.
Morning, Angela.
Morning, Angela.
Morning.
All right.
All right, so someone to move those apologies be received. Thank you, Councillor Kerr. I'll second that. All in favour? Anyone against? Do we have an apology from Councillor Van Beek?
No, but he's still overseas from what
I'll
I
put an
understand.
apology for Councillor Van Beek. I'll move
include
that.
that.
Could someone second that? All in favour? Anyone against? All right, housekeeping. Over the page. See, it's not.
Not over our page.
It's at the bottom of the page, Martin.
Oh, is it?
I see. It's
Oh.
just two.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
That's all right. This meeting's been live streamed on Council's Facebook page and recorded for your viewing pleasure at a later date on our YouTube channel. In an earthquake, drop, cover and hold if the shaking's long or strong. When shaking subsides, leave the building through the nearest exit over there and proceed immediately towards Napier Hill along Dalton Street to Tiffin Park, continuing up the steps to Cameron Road. If an emergency alarm sounds, immediately evacuate the building through the nearest exit, and you can see where those are signposted, and proceed to the assembly area on the grass at the corner of Dalton and Vortia Streets. And as I pointed out, those exits, the wharepaku are down the hall, just to the right there from the chamber. You know where they are, I think, everyone here. And with all of that, we can probably move to whether there are any conflict of interest declarations. Any notices? I'd just like us to all hold in our hearts and minds the people of Wairoa at this time. Not only are they suffering the consequences of a second major flooding event, but they remain critically reliant on a State Highway 2 corridor that is perilously unresilient, if I might put it that way, which deserves our support in every way we can give it. We acknowledge the apologies received from Wairoa today, including from the Mayor. The regional, we can now move to the
Minutes?
substantive agenda, and firstly, the minutes of the meeting of 24 May, was it? Would someone be willing to move that they are a true and correct record?
Happy to move.
Any seconders? Okay, well, I'll second them. think they're very faithful recollections or reflection, account of everything we resolved and considered at that very important meeting. So is there any further discussion about those minutes? So we've got a mover and a seconder. All in favour of approving those minutes?
Aye.
Anyone against? It's carried. All right, we can move to the agenda for this hui, which is firstly to receive the Regional Transport Program July 2024 update. So who's going to speak to that paper? Has he got a
that'll be me,
voice?
Chair.
Morning, Marcus. Welcome.
Apologies in advance if I have a little bit of a coughing fit. I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. So look, I'll largely just take the paper as read, but as usual, I'll just go through each key work stream and just provide a very brief verbal update or further information as required. So RLTP, as of course you're all aware, we had the deliberations on the 24th, so I've just been working away making those amendments and updates as decided by the committee during the deliberations. So that's now sitting with the chair and Councillor Kerr to review and approve those ahead of it going up to the full council for adoption on the 24th of July and then filing with NZTA by 1 August for the development and adoption of the NLTP, which is due to be signed off or endorsed by the NZTA board very late August, with funding allocations released by the 1st of September. So the regional speed management planning, moving to the next work stream. The committee may recall that, of course, we started, must have been almost 2 years ago now, started the process of developing a regional speed management plan. We drafted up the strategic front end, agreed principles, priorities, and so forth. That was subsequently put on hold following the election. Recently, an updated proposal has been released for consultation around the setting of speed limits rule, which will now be the setting of speed limits rule 2024. Consultation on that closed yesterday. The TAG have developed a regional submission on the proposal, and we will effectively be bringing more information to this committee once those changes have been baked in and the new rule has been adopted. However, at a high level, it is quite different from the previous setting of speed limit rule. There's generally a change in language from must to may against a lot of requirements. So, for example, we now may develop a regional speed management plan. Under the previous rule, it was a must. There's also a range of additional consultation requirements for any speed limit changes, along with the requirement for a cost-benefit analysis to be undertaken against each proposed change if RCAs want to do that. On the face of it, that will create a significant burden for RCAs when wanting to change speed limits. Conversely, of course, the other part of it is that there is a proposal to reverse any speed limit changes made from 1 January 2020, which again, on the face of it, would take into account State Highway 5, unless significant community support can be demonstrated for that. So there is positives and negatives, but we will, like I say, bring more solid advice to the committee once those are all agreed and baked in by the ministry and the minister. RoadSafe Hawke's Bay. So in May, the first week of.
Oh, Bryce, a question.
Oh,
Through you,
you,
Mr.
you
Chair,
don't
can
want
I
to wait
ask?
until
Well,
Bryce is
I was
finished?
just going to check with you and with Bryce whether you want questions at each point or till at the end.
Could we do that at the end? Because, yeah, I've got a question on what he's just been talking about, so just,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. So RoadSafe, the Youth Expo was held on the first
all right,
week of
sorry.
May.
Yeah.
Okay, you are moving off the regional speed management.
Oh, yes.
Let's take some questions on that, and I can see that there
Okay.
some wanting to be raised. Councillor Kerr?
I was just wondering if we could have a copy of the tag submission to the
Yes.
change, the speed limit change. And I'm assuming that that was all about the process rather than the actual roads themselves.
Yes, correct. It did not relate to specific roads. It related to the proposed changes.
And one thing I'm really interested in using State Highway 5 as an example is how do we demonstrate community support or otherwise? Because those that live along State Highway 5 will want to go fast everywhere else, but slowly in front of my house, which is not
Yes.
unique to any road.
Yes, exactly. It is yet reasonably undefined. I believe the proposal in the rule says that the RCA has to demonstrate community support or be able to demonstrate community support, the level of which is yet undefined and is reasonably opaque. So one of the things that we have asked for in the submission is clarity on exactly what that means. Is it a percentage of respondents? Is it a certain type of feedback? What exactly are we looking at or looking for with that community acceptance or support?
Kia ora, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I was just going to pick up on that. I had some input into the submission and read the rule with interest. It actually has a schedule at the back which basically says what the speed limits have to be for certain kinds of roads. So it's much more blanket and prescriptive as opposed to sort of a localised, determining what our communities want type of approach. And particularly around schools, it's saying that in certain windows you have to be certain speeds, and then you go back to 50 outside that. So it's going to necessitate signage that's sort of variable signage, and so there's a lot to consider around all of that. But I'm particularly interested, not necessarily today, Linda, don't mean to put you on the spot, but at some stage we're going to have a conversation about how we go through an exercise with our communities around what in the test is public acceptance of the reduced speed limit is. Is there some halfway house here where sections of the road could stay at 80 or 90 and others go, and it'd actually be quite a good opportunity to check in with our communities on what their experience with that has been. I know we campaigned vigorously for maintaining 100 when it was reduced, but for me, that was as much to ensure that speed wasn't used as a proxy to sort of avoid the need to invest in the corridor to make it safe at 100. And we've had a big program business case since. So, the world has changed quite a lot, I think, and people have had that experience. So I invite even for the next agenda or something, and for, you might comment now, Linda, but for us to think about how we go through a process of determining the level of public acceptance and whether there might be some halfway house between full reversion to 100 and what we have now. You want to comment on that, Linda?
Just briefly, thank you, Chair, and echo officer's comments. The rule is in some ways very prescriptive and very detailed, and in other ways there is not enough detail for us to understand aspects around funding for this, what community support is defined as, or community acceptance, and what the test for that is. What I can say is that it will be specific to the type of roads. So, for example, here, all state highways and all speeds under the proposed new rule will be required, if they've had a change to the speed, be required to return to 100 or to 50. There are some exceptions to that depending on the categorisation, but that's kind of the general rule of thumb. But a good exception would be State Highway 51 in Hastings that was changed. At the moment, that doesn't look like under the proposed rule it would automatically revert back, so it would retain. whereas State Highway 5 looks like it would automatically revert back in its entirety. And we would have to then, if it was deemed appropriate, go out to reconsult to test the level of support. Now, whether that means we can do that in a pragmatic way or not, it's not how the rule reads at the moment, but that's why submissions and support from communities will be really, really critical. MOT are considering the submissions at the moment, which have been exceptional in both volume, but also as well pretty divisive on the views of that. So we'll need to see where it lands. Local roads are treated slightly differently under the new rule as opposed to state highways, where they are reverting, but you don't have the same opportunity to test through consultation, community support for that. So again, the devil's in the detail how it lands. So your submission will be invaluable.
And I think there is a deadline for the agency to give notice to the director that there is public support or acceptance.
Quite.
So can I just sort of put on the table, whether it's minute or otherwise, that maybe the staff and the agency have a conversation about the timing of a consultation with our community around that issue well ahead of that deadline?
Absolutely, and that's one of the pieces of feedback that we're providing. The timescale, given the number of potential changes to speeds right across the country, but to do, even bare minimum of consultation with community is going to put a lot of pressure on both staff, officers, but communities to do that in the time required, given what's indicated in the proposed rule.
Okay, back to you, Bryce. So take us through the rest of the paper and then...
Sorry, just through the chair. If you don't mind me asking, and this may not be able to be answered, but I mean, we've kind of already done a consultation already. And looking at what you said before, Chair, about you did say that we're in a different world. So I assume that there will be the need to reconsult. But I would be quite interested in what that data that was taken before the speed change said as well, because we've already heard from our community, and they're pretty loud and clear as to what they wanted.
Yeah, it was 90% opposed back then.
Through you, Chair, just on that point, Councillor Moulton, that was something when we had a few tag sessions leading into the development of our submission that came through quite strongly, and exactly that. Both Hastings and Napier, and well, in fact, all RCAs had said that there had been significant engagement with our communities to date around speed changes, having to either redo that and or reverse those speed changes and then try and reconsult on them would present a range of challenges. So again, that's another area that we've asked for a bit more clarity on from a process perspective, and what that level of detail and acceptance for already consulted on changes might look like under the new rule.
Thank you, Bruce.
Sorry, through you, Chair, I would just note it's not really optional. Those types of changes require community consultation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may, can I ask a question in terms of the relative weighting that, for instance, community consultation would be given under this rule versus the cost-benefit analysis, and what happens if those two things are opposing? I'm thinking, for instance, of State Highway 5, where the evaluation evidence is clearly in favour of a reduction in speed limits.
Yeah, well, it's not quite like that, because, I mean, you need to do a CBA from now on if you're going to reduce speed limits, but the reversal is automatic without a cost-benefit analysis unless you show public support. So the only test for, it's going to 100 next July, unless the agency certifies basically that there is public support to keep something different.
So it would then be an active process to look at a reduction back to 80
Yeah, in future.
yeah.
Councillor
Thank
Kerr?
you for that clarity.
Just a question to Linda. Napier to Taupo, is it treated as one speed limit, or like at the moment it can be split into different parts? And is that this conversation we need to have with the community?
That would certainly be what we would like to, or we would aim to approach it at. I think in the last one there was 13 sections looked at, and it can be broken down. Whether we have that flexibility under the proposed rule or not remains unclear. I would note, however, though, the government has signalled quite clearly that they are opposed to blanket reductions. So that may provide us with the opportunity to look at sections on a high-risk basis as opposed to longer stretches of corridors.
The local community were very clear they didn't like the blanket piece. There are parts of the road that definitely need to be at a reduced speed. So thank you, Linda.
Yes, opposed to blanket reductions, but blanket reversals, not a problem, it seems. All right, back to you, Bryce. I think you're getting on to road safe.
Thank you, yes. So, Road Safe, we had the Youth Alcohol Expo in the first week of May, and that was very successful. There was over 2,000 students, 19 colleges across Hawke's Bay that attended throughout the week, and so that was carried out in collaboration with key partners such as Police, St John's, FENS, and a range of other injury prevention trusts, and also ACC. And a lot of the BAU activities continue there, fatigue stops, spotting checkpoints, etc., etc. Transport emissions reduction plan, very briefly. The transport chapter has been in front of this committee previously, has been endorsed and signed off, and most of the actions have actually been baked into either the Regional Public Transport Plan or the Regional Land Transport Plan for action. Active transport. So the active transport strategy has effectively been delayed. Of course, staff time and attention has been directed more towards cyclone rebuild and response. However, that will be picked up later on in the year as the TAG work streams are firmed up following NLTP development and excuse me, and adoption, and we can actually firm up our work program. Councillor Taylor, I see you have a question.
Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, I wasn't sure when you would, at what point the public, you were onto the public transport. Apologies if I've put my hand up in the wrong place.
All good, Councillor.
I wanted to ask about the program tracker. Talks about the date for the CHB Express trial is September 24, subject to adoption of the NLTP. And I note in the further public transport paper that's still to come to the meeting that there's no mention of the CHB Express trial. I'm just wanting to know what's happening with that, please.
Yep, sure. Through you, Chair.
Can I answer
I must have missed
please?
that. Oh, sure.
Katrina.
Sorry, through you, Chair. Given that we Sans our transport manager at the moment, I'll answer that question. Essentially, at this point in time, the funding that we have been indicated from Waka Kotahi for public transport is significantly less than what we would have liked, and we are currently at risk of not being able to afford the current public transport offering that we already provide. We will continue to work on how we might offer a trial for Central Hawke's Bay, but with all due respect, Councillor, there is no funding available for it at this point in time.
Obviously, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm well aware that there's no funding for that at this point in time. I'm wanting it still just making noise so that it stays in the agenda, it stays in the thinking that CHB has expressed an interest in this express trial happening, and I just want to keep it front of mind, please. Thank you.
No, I think that's great, Councillor Taylor. And there was, his name escapes my memory at the moment, but there is, there's something in the plan about alternative funding sources. We may need to look at partnering with the community, and there is a willing punter who's approached the council for a discussion about that. And Councillor Taylor, can you please keep beating that drum, because we can't let that go. it's to our dismay that as a result really of the GPS settings, we've ended up with a level of funding that means that stepping into the next year's public transport plan has become somewhat of a pipe dream. And so Katrina and her team are really struggling to figure out what we can actually do even with our existing level of service. And I was just going to ask you, Katrina, you've shared with me that there is thinking, and it's mentioned later in the paper on page 21, on page 17, a conversation about, in the context of the contract, whether and how, within the amount of funding we've been given, we couldn't step into that new public transport model of frequency over coverage, but within the funding that we've got, which is on an assumption of continuous program rather than improvement. Can you unpack that a little bit?
I can unpack it through you, Chair. So currently, before we can go out to contract, our current public transport contract expires June next year or thereabout. And before we can go out to contract and contract for any new service, whether that's an increase in frequency or increase in services, we need to go through a business case process with Waka Kotahi, and we are right in the middle of that right now. And so we will be submitting that hopefully soon, with the intention that once the NLTF is determined and we know what the funding looks like for the next 3 years, we are hoping that will line up with approval of our business case through Waka Kotahi. They are well aware of what we are trying to do with a step change, but maintaining current costs, so within our current budget. And so we're working through that. A shout out to Waka Kotahi staff who have been amazing, really supportive and very helpful in that. So really it's just a wait and see approach at this point in time. We are trying to take a scaled back approach to what our RPTP was trying to achieve, given funding constraints. And that not only applies to Waka Kotahi, but also applies to our ratepayers, that at the time we were being probably quite aggressive in our approach to public transport, and we've had to scale that back a bit and take a longer term approach on how we might achieve that.
Yeah. So the vision's still there, and the conundrum is really, as I understand it, Katrina, seeing whether we can't do some of the new model of public transport which would deliver greater returns and gains for our communities within the new model, but within our existing level of funding, sort of thing.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And we're working really closely with other regions like Horizons, who have made a significant step change in their public transport frequencies, with a 50% increase in passenger numbers. So they are really doing very, very well. And anything we can learn from other regions, we're in there.
That helps with your fare box recovery, which is apparently
Correct.
the ambition now. Thank you for that. Anything else on the public, or there is a paper on that coming?
Yes.
I think that's probably covered that. Any other questions for Bryce or Katrina? Any other discussion on this paper? Had a reasonable amount, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about that consultation timeline for the State Highway 50, State Highway 5 reversal.
Or not.
What's that?
Or not.
Yes, or not. That's right. And I'm particularly interested in if it's binary, if it's 80, 100, nothing in between, but
Quite.
I don't expect an answer on that right away. Okay, well, I'd like to move that we receive that paper with thanks to the staff. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mawson. And all in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? That's carried. So we'll move on to the Road Safe Hawke's Bay update. Who's going to take us through that?
I will, Chair. So again, I'll generally take the paper as read and just provide a very brief overview. In fact, most of it was really covered off in the previous paper, particularly the Expo, which of course is the big event for the year, and we've talked about that already, so I won't go over previously covered ground. We also had Road Safety Week 2024, so that saw a range of activities and activations across the region in partnership with police and other key delivery partners. So there was a range of checkpoint operations in conjunction with police targeting restraints, distraction, and to an extent impairment. So there was enforcement action. Complementing this, we had the Court Being Good program being rolled out as well, whereby if someone from RoadSafe Hawke's Bay, for example, saw someone pulled over talking on their phone, then they would go and reward them for positive behaviours. The youth initiatives that we have baked in as part of our BAU are continuing. So those are largely the Ignite program through Macca Sports Leadership Trust and Building Futures through the Tumu Group. That is a 6 weekly presentation to the training cohorts at that time, and those have been very successful in terms of encouraging good road user behaviours and effectively steering the cohorts in the right direction. And there's also the reasonably intensive youth interventions that Liz runs in conjunction with New Zealand Police for young offenders. These are usually very, very small groups, 2 or 3 people who are just on the precipice of entering the justice system, and this is effectively the last opportunity to see them right. And again, those things have been very successful as an intensive intervention for very at-risk people. Finally, the other key initiative that we've had lately is a joint initiative with ACC that has attracted some ACC co-funding. It's very much around pedestrian safety and school safety, so it's an initiative involving school children and leveraging both some of the road safety messaging and the ACC Have a Hymn messaging as well, and that again has been very successful. And the schools involved, and I don't have the number or names of the schools to hand, but the schools involved have been very proactive and very interested in getting involved. That has also extended to the cycleway network as well. And so that's effectively a high-level overview of where things are at with RoadSafe Hawke's Bay for this quarter update.
All right, thank you. And I'm delighted to hear about some of those initiatives. And can you just tell me when the expo was?
It was the first week of May.
And I really, really was heartened to hear about the Ignite Youth Program, Tumu Timber's support for that, and the rangatahi education sessions in particular. Can you just tell me, and I must have missed this one, what Have a Hymn means?
Oh.
That's the I guess we'll call it the byline for ACC. So if you cast your mind back, because I don't know if they're still running it, there was an ACC advertising campaign reasonably recently with ads and so forth where some guy was about to jump off a waterfall or something, and it goes through this situation where it's, if I do this and I break my leg, such and such has got to look after me, and I can't do X and I can't do Y and so forth. And then the line at the end of it is just have a before you do something.
Thank you. You've reminded me now. Just trying to think of a transport version of that. Don't overtake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's going to drive me to work if I crash my car?
That's great. Any other questions from Councillor Kerr?
Several years ago, we had programs that were assisting drivers to get their driver's license, or learners to restricted to full. Has that program run its time? And in retrospect, was it successful?
So if you are talking specifically about the funding support for the 3, I think it was 3 licensed providers, and if memory serves me, that was at the start of this NLTP, so 2021 that would have kicked off. There was a bucket of funding that was provided to, off the top of my head, Got Drive, Wairoa College, and
Dove?
Connecting
Yes.
Youth, I think.
Yep.
So those agreements have been satisfied, and as my understanding, again, I don't have the numbers to hand, but that did enable quite a range of young drivers to obtain their licenses, and it provided quite a level of support. So that particular agreement or fund has been exhausted. However, RoadSafe Hawke's Bay have provided some support to Ignite for a trial community driver mentoring program, and if memory serves, that trial or the funding for that trial has just come to an end. That has actually been wildly successful. So the trial set out to progress 50 clients through either their learners restricted or full license, and within the funding bucket that they have managed to do 75 to date, with a huge rate of success in terms of resits, and so forth. Also, as part of the ongoing RoadSafe BAU, Liz does still support a range of young drivers to step through their licensing programs. That is more particularly prevalent with those rangatahi and youth sessions that are part of the BAU programs. So effectively, yes, we are still actively supporting driver licensing obtainment through a range of different community providers, and Liz is also doing some more targeted and intensive stuff as well through the youth and rangatahi programs.
Thank you. And may I ask one further question?
Yeah, I think so.
Question to Angela, given you're our road policing manager and looking at this paper, are there any significant gaps that you think this committee, through RoadSafe, should be leaning into? Because our statistics are not good.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't have immediate answer right now. I probably need to digest that, come back to you.
That would be lovely. Thank you.
The next forum. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. All right, well, any other questions or discussion on this paper? Or okay, would someone like to move that it be received? Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Mawson, all in favour? Aye. Anyone against? Carried. Public transport update. Now, Bryce, I hear your pain. Does anyone else want to speak to this paper, or is that you again?
I'm happy to give a high level overview and hand to Katrina if that's
it has been. I mean, we've all read it.
Yeah.
Are there any particular aspects? I had asked Katrina to paint us a bit of a picture of the conundrum of the new contract and the funding and the new model. And it's great that we're getting the independent support advice from MR Cagney around, how you would get the best returns from within our funding using aspects of the new approach. For all of the reasons we've just shared, that's really, really good, because I think, as Councillor Van Beek said the other day, we've all probably got our ideas of what should be done. If we're going to cherry pick bits of it, we get that independent advice, and look forward to further updates on how that rolls out. Anything you want to add to the paper that's not there, Bryce or Katrina?
Through you, Chair, if I may just highlight 2 key things. They are set out in the paper. However, I think it would be good just to call them out. If we look at both the patronage and the fare box revenue graphs following the full reinstatement of services at the end of January, we have seen a clear increase in both patronage and fare box revenue. And in actual fact, between April and May months, there's been 117% uplift in patronage from April to May. So things are generally trending in the right direction. And I think off the top of my head, total patronage on the bus services, excluding MyWay, last year was somewhere around 405,000. This year we're looking at 440,000 for the year. So we're heading back up, which is fantastic. Again, we've seen the same trend in farebox recovery as well, keeping in mind we increased the fares from the start of May. And introduced that youth concession fare. So again, we've seen the farebox revenue increase in both May and a little bit less for June. So, reading between the lines, we can see that if we increase or bring back the level of service that we had, and we can reliably provide that for our communities, we can see that they will use it in increasing amounts. So the challenge now is to maintain that trend, but I did just want to highlight that for the committee because that is a very positive news story for public transport.
Yeah, look, and that's a huge credit to Katrina, yourself, Bryce, and Mark. It's been like you've been the rugby team sort of camped on the defence line for the last 2 years, trying not to concede a try, pretty much, and yet you've managed to turn it around and kick the ball down to the other half. So that's bloody fantastic. And
I just might add, through you, Chair, we have appointed a new transport manager, only because we're meeting this week and won't meet for quite some time. I thought I might announce that, and I can't remember if I have done so. We have appointed Russell Turnbull. Russell comes to us from GoBus or Kinetic, their parent company in Auckland. We're really excited to get Russell. Well, we feel quite lucky. He has previous local government experience many years ago at Waikato Regional Council, and so we just feel really privileged and really excited. He starts with us on the 22nd, so 10 days' time.
Fantastic. Look, I just want to pick up on this total mobility because I'm heartened to see that we're looking at that, because it is a cost line that it runs away from us.
Yeah.
And I think there's a distinction between the market we're trying to serve for people who, because of their stage in life or physical capacity, can't actually get onto a bus or to a bus stop, and people who are using the service because there isn't a bus. And it's quite hard to sort of figure out exactly what's happening there.
Yes.
So I think those criteria do need to be looked at.
Yeah, so through you, Chair, one of the things that we will be doing very early on this year is bringing all of our total mobility providers in and attempting to reset the scheme.
Yeah.
We've been working really closely with Auckland Transport, actually, on changes they have made to total mobility in order to reduce their costs. Our region has one of the highest fare caps. We will need to reduce that fare cap. It is unaffordable. Currently, we're hitting almost $1 million over our budget. That hits the general rate line at the end of every year. That is unaffordable for Hawke's Bay Regional Council going forward. We are also seeing that there is, in analysing data, 75% discounts being applied to all fares. We need to review that because it shouldn't be. So there's quite a few things there that we can tighten up on, and we just need to. But as you say, hand in hand, we need to have and have now got a reliable bus service that will give some of those patrons more confidence that they can catch a bus. In addition, we have agreed with GoBus for the last year of the contract to maintain and retain, retain MyWay in those in that Hastings community, and we'll continue to work with we're continuing to look at how My Way might be part of our future.
Awesome. All right, Councillor Kerr.
I just have a series of questions and comments, if I may. So the live tracking operator,
Yes.
like I'd earlier gone onto the regional council website to see if I could live track buses.
Yes.
Now, the one I tapped on says live tracking not available. But is there, in essence, somebody can pick up their phone and go, how far away is my bus?
Currently, at this point in time, no.
How-
Only through the website.
Okay. How far away, and is there a plan for that to happen?
At this
Is
point in
the-
time,
is there
no.
money?
We had, if you will recall, we had secured funding for digitisation of our network in terms of bus signage, timetabling, and that would have been the step to providing an app to bring all of that together. That funding was pulled. We are essentially running on the smell of an oily rag, Councillor Kerr.
I appreciate that.
And so we, at this point in time, there is no plan yet. But Radiola have made tracking on the website much better for us. There are times where you won't be able to track a bus if the operator has a bus that has broken down and they then have to use a replacement bus. I think there is an implication there. So it's a work in progress, and I hear your challenge. Thank you. I'll take that on.
Thank you. Further question, a request regarding the public transport patronage. It would be really good to get several years showing up on the same graph behind, so I can see the impact of global financial crisis, COVID, cyclone, etc. Because to me, the 12-month patronage and a lift from January through to February, it could be caused by several schools going to swimming one day or something. So just trying to really get a greater trend. And the My Way service, I was really disappointed to read that the accessible van has been off the road for several months. No finger pointing, but just noting my concern. And finally,
So through you, Chair, ultimately, yes, we've been working on that
yes,
with the operator. That was a brand new vehicle that we purchased with GoBus. And it's probably something that GoBus are surprised about, the amount of use that the vehicle has had. The vehicle has not coped with that, and it lost its engine.
and finally through you, Mr. Chair, the contract for provision of public transport services is due for review, I see, and there's been a request for interest on GETS. Really interested in the governance oversight of that whole process.
The governance.
The governance oversight of what's in the contract, what's part of the request for information and when you go out for tender, governance oversight of what is, to me, a really significant
Well,
tender.
Councillor Kerr, the governance oversight of that is a regional public transport plan. And I see it as an operational matter for staff to procure a contract, and I think it's the essence of local government procurement that governance stay right out of that, that delivers on our public transport plan within the funding that we provide through the decisions we make and our long-term plans, and is delivered through the NLTF. That's my answer to that. Katrina may have another answer. So I haven't requested, although I've ensured regular briefings on the process and asked questions, and quite hard questions a number of times about this. I haven't walked into that arena in that way. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on what sort of governance oversight you think we should be applying. But happy to hear from Katrina as well.
I think you're on the money. Yeah.
I'm happy with that answer. It was just sitting here,
Yeah.
not being part of the regional council, trying to understand. It's reassuring that you've been involved in asking questions as chair of the Regional Transport Committee. That's great. In essence, it's a contract that the regional council takes with the provider, as opposed to me sitting here representing Hastings District. So it was just that unknown was why I raised the question.
Yeah, and partly why I'm being a little bit cagey is also it's incredibly commercially sort of sensitive. But the one thing we want to ensure is that it is a contract that doesn't leave us in the same position we were in last time in terms of levers for us to pull when the service delivery expectations aren't delivered. And I am assured that there has been very robust legal and expert advice into the structure of that contract and into the pricing incentives for other models around the level of service in this contract, actually to ensure that if we get further funding in the future, we're in the best place to build that in to what is provided. Say that much.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, if you're satisfied, I'll leave the question there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, Councillor Taylor.
I just wanted to add to that I assume governance have oversight on the council, regional council's procurement policies as well. So
Yes.
that would fall under that. So if there was any specific things that this committee wished to go through that procurement process, that would be the place to do it. Is that correct?
I'll let Ms. Brunton answer that. But
Through you, Chair, it's actually guided by Waka Kotahi's procurement process rather than HBRC's procurement process, and quite detailed. It's on, we can provide updates as we go through, but ultimately knowing that it is commercially sensitive.
well, let's do that. Let's make sure we do get updates. What's the date the contract would be entered? September? Ish?
August, I believe.
August, yeah, I had kind of September in my head, but all right. Thank you. Any other questions on this paper? Any other discussion? Someone like to move that be received? Okay, I will. I move that it be received. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Kerr, thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. So we move on to quite an extensive and important report from Linda. And we would have seen in our agenda a lot of the slides, and I'm in your hands, Linda. You've got half an hour if you need it to take us through all of that. You're all good. No worries.
Why is that screen not on, I wonder? How am I going to tell?
Is that computer on?
There's no picture on there?
I mean, down up.
I'll just have to look behind me. a second.
Doesn't look like there's any power on it.
Oh, it's on the dashboard.
Have you got access to the Teams meeting? Otherwise, to join and share.
No, it's usually, I can't, because it's a government laptop, I can't plug it in randomly to stuff.
Yeah, USBs are having issues.
I can just talk to the handout.
Why don't we do that?
Should we just talk to our...
Yeah, because you've all
We've all got it.
Yeah, that'll be easier.
All right.
Rather than.
It's not
spending
good for our
ages here.
people online, unfortunately, so do keep working on it, but I think we need to make a start.
Okay, let's go. Okay, thank you. Interesting times, a lot happening when it comes to land transport at the moment. We'll go to the first slide titled the NLTP development. So you will be aware that the final government policy statement on land transport for 2024 has now been released. I think it was late June. That outlines the government's ambitious investment plan for $22 billion worth of investment into the land transport system, with the priority objective of increasing economic growth and productivity. It's important to note that NZTA is required to give effect to that GPS to ensure that we achieve through that investment the government's outcomes for the transport system. We have now finalised our investment prioritisation method now that we have that GPS, and we are currently working through the prioritisation of all bids into the NLTP. Indicative allocations have been released for continuous programmes to all approved organisations, primarily for maintenance and operations and for public transport. All other activity class funds will be confirmed once the board adopts the NLTP at the end of August. So you can expect final confirmation, I'd like to say end of August, but in all likelihood it's probably the first week of September. The next slide, roads of national significance. Many thanks to those that were able to join us yesterday morning, I think that was, for an update on the roads of national significance. This is the #1 priority for the government, and that's to achieve a land transport system that supports not just economic growth and productivity, but for freight and people to get where they need to get to efficiently and safely. Pleasingly for the Lower North Island, we have 2 roads of national significance here. That's Otaki to north of Levin, but also as well the Hawke's Bay Expressway. Funding for the Hawke's Bay Expressway will be confirmed once the board adopts the NLTP at the end of August, and that will be released publicly, as I say, at the beginning of September. The upgrading of the expressway is 4-laning to ensure that we reduce some of that congestion that we were chatting about earlier.
So you're not late?
To provide an efficient but also reliable connection between Napier and Hastings, but also further afield. So particularly for freight, for port, and for those that are commuting back across to Manawatu Wanganui. We are looking and working at pace within NZTA now. We have a project team stood up that are beginning the planning for this important project, and we've got opportunities to progress and to make rapid progress on phase 1 between Taradale Road and the Pakawhai Link section. The work that's underway at the moment, you'll see activity out there. There are site investigations taking place by our team, and we're currently working through the investment case for this project. Next one, quick update on safety cameras. In short, there's been much questions, are NZTA still taking over the management of safety cameras? Yes, we are. That's indicated as well in the GPS. What we are, though, is awaiting confirmation of the quantum of funding through the NLTP for the safety camera expansion programme. That will dictate how many safety cameras there are across the whole of the state highway network, but also local road network right across the country. When we say safety cameras, that includes things like red light cameras, but also as well includes both static cameras, mobile cameras, and potentially point-to-point cameras too. Once we understand the quantum of any increase in the safety camera network, we will then begin to engage directly with RCAs to understand the local insight, expertise and data for the highest risk areas as you and your communities see them. But also as well to share with you our prioritisation. We have a long list and a short list of key sites that we would like to consider, but that won't be done in silo, particularly if the expansion is perhaps more confined than we were previously hoping for. The next one, I think we've kind of covered this off, is the consultation on the setting of speed limits. This draft setting of speed limit rule delivers on the National and ACT coalition commitment to reverse the previous government's approach to blanket speed limit reductions. It wants to quite clearly ensure that where speed limits are set, that economic impacts, as well as and including travel times, but also to the views of road users and local communities, are taken more fully into account alongside safety outcomes. Consultations closed, MOT are working through the wealth of submissions, and I think we're all looking for that clarity as to how it's going to land. Next one. Emergency Works Policy Review, just a really brief update on this one. It's created a lot of interest and a wealth of submissions. I think we had 64 submissions in total from both RTCs and also individual councils. Two parts to this. Some of the changes have now been applied and they are available on our website. Those changes as a result of the consultation and submission process are primarily around the definitions that are applicable through Emergency Works applications. So that's more clarity on what is response, what is recovery, how does the uneconomic roading policy interplay or interlink with the Emergency Works process. What we have not reached a decision on yet are the qualifying events and the FAR rates that are applicable. The board are still considering feedback through the submissions that we've received before making any changes to those. So your team can find the update on the policy and process changes on our website, but just to confirm, we have not made decisions on qualifying events or FAR rates yet.
Can I just, a quick question on that?
Go for it.
My understanding, though, is that the 20% enhanced FAR rate will stick for Cyclone Gabriel damage, at least. That much is clear, isn't that right?
Quite, noting that that is Crown funded, so it's not funded out of the same pool, and also anything that's happened prior to the June date, the July date, sorry, Chair.
Right, so
yes,
this is going forward.
Looking.
Yep. Thank
only.
you.
Yes. Regional update, RLTP significant activities, just a couple of updates. Also noting the slow progress down State Highway 5 due to the roadworks that are happening. Safety improvements as well as ongoing recovery work. So we have, I think, 2 sites completed on the short-term safety improvements, the quick wins, if you like, that we identified through the work that's been underway on the programme business case. And there's another 7 sites that are still to be completed alongside the ongoing recovery work. And as well, just want to acknowledge the ongoing patience, but yeah, it's quite a bit for the community to deal with, that amount of road work on all of the roads that they're accessing, so thank you. The programme business case for State Highway 5 is in the State Highway Improvement programme for the NLTF for consideration for funding. So we will await to hear the decision on that once the board makes their final decisions on the NLTF. Pleasingly, State Highway 51 safety improvements have made good progress. I think we should have a small opening event for that now that it's up and running, but that seems to have come together very well. And then State Highway 38, the tall oil pitch, the Wairoa to Aniawa, I think I've spelled that wrong. 3 sites have now been completed with the tall oil pitch and are now being monitored for performance. Alongside that, we've also installed, I think, about 7 kilometres of safety barriers and done some improvements to resilient sites on over and under slips at the same time. Next one, just a quick update on all things speed and infrastructure. On this slide, you'll note that there's...
Sorry, just before we get to that.
Yep.
There is fog in my head, and I guess somewhat, I'm unclear, another way of saying that, around all these different business cases for State Highways 5 and 2.
Yes.
We had about $120 million of funding in the existing RLTP for State Highway 5, I think, of which 24 million was doing immediate stuff, I think, which has largely been spent. And then there was 100 million earmarked for the future. Then we had a program business case, which is the first item here for really the long-term vision for State Highway 5, which we had quite extensive engagement with your agency about, and there was a reference group and a steering group and all that sort of thing. And then there are the program business cases for the resilience package, which are recorded in our RLTP, which were divided into two components. One was Tairāwhiti to Wairoa, one was Wairoa to Napier, which I am assuming is really wrapped up in item 7 on that table. Is that the same thing as that?
Not for 5, but yes, for 2 it is.
Yeah, sorry, for 2. Yeah, yes, right.
So there's just the 2 PBC for State Highway 5.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So break it down.
Yeah.
So we had the State Highway 5 one was really nothing to do with the cyclone. That was a State Highway 5 thing. But what is in 7 are the 2 program business cases for Tairāwhiti, Wairoa and Wairoa to Napier.
You're correct.
They live.
Yes.
Within each of those, the sort of wheels within wheels, for example, we've had conversations about whether Devil's Elbow should be realigned to a different corridor. And there was some discussion at last RLTP, last RTC meeting, I should say.
Yes.
Is there any way we can kind of untangle some of this so that we understand which is and what? Pigeonhole, and when we see discussions about what's in the SHIP and progress reports and that sort of thing, we can really kind of track and monitor how this is all progressing over time. I mean, it's great you're bringing this to us, but it's a really murky picture when you look at it as a whole. See my point? And it's not intended as criticism. It's just there's lots of business cases flying around.
I think probably the programme business cases, and we'll get to the state of them at the end, for the cyclone impacted corridors are separate as first up.
Yeah.
So they were always intended to be funded through Treasury and through Crown as part of the rebuild funding.
Right.
Because we did not secure that funding, and we weren't sure if we were able to, we included them as bids into this NLTF as part of the SHIP, which is how now we've got multiple business cases on the corridor.
And
so
it's
that's
also
why
in our RLTP as well.
Yes, yeah. If we didn't include them in the RLTP and in the NLTP, because we've not got any opportunities for Crown funding through Budget 2024, we could potentially have missed out on securing any further funding through the NLTF. So that's why all of a sudden you've got 4 PVCs in the one bucket. How does it work? Ideally, it would have been separate, Chair.
And the quick wins within the State Highway 5, they were the first sort of stage of the State Highway 5 program business case that we completed in April, and you're getting to that.
Yes, and that 100 million is in for the PBC, the original PBC that you all put into for State Highway 5 is in the NLTF for funding for 24-27, but we need to see if we get that funding confirmed. So that's that's the original PBC.
Yeah, and so that's additional to this item 1 here. That's still money in reserve that's waiting yet to be spent on State Highway 5, that 100 million?
No, that's the money that's bid in for this NLTF.
Yeah.
It's not certain.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
I thought we had 120 committed under the last RLTP for State Highway 5.
It's not committed funding, no. The work is all done and there and ready to go, but we don't have the funds.
Okay. Thank you. Carry on.
Mr. Chair, can I just seek clarification on the State Highway 5? Community asked me what's happening, and I've simply been saying there's safety works that is funded.
Right.
There's the cyclone repair back to how it was, that is Crown funded, and no further promises on making it more resilient. Then there was a whole lot of planning done about improving the whole route. That's all been planned, but it's sitting and being challenged against all other national funds across the whole National Land Transport Budget.
You're spot on, 100%.
Thank you.
It's quite a process, isn't it? The slide that's titled Speed and Infrastructure Update, I think we've covered that. Thank you both.
Excuse me, Chair.
Apologies.
Sandra, Mayor Hazelhurst.
Good morning, Mayor Sandra. I see you have a
Kia ora
question.
koutou. Morning, everyone. And through you, Chair, I just want to follow up on Councillor Kerr's question about the State Highway 5 improvements. So through you, Chair, a question to Linda. So the 2025-2027 budgets and us understanding what that decision-making timeframe will look like, how are we putting our best case forward as both a Transport Committee and a region to ensure that we get that budget approved for that timeframe? So, yeah, we can sit back and wait, but actually we need to be putting a really strong regional case together that we are included in those improvements for State Highway 5. And, you know, I just think that, you know, when is that decision making for the 2025 and to 2027 budget going to be made, and how are we putting our best foot forward? I mean, yeah, we can have it in a plan, we get that, but actually, do we need to do some more work about, I mean, how do we make sure that we're included? We know that this year there wasn't funding, but next year, and, you know, we need to have that time frame and actually having the best case rather than just being with all the other regions of New Zealand saying that State Highway 5 is critically important to us.
Through you, Chair, thank you, Mayor Hazelhurst. Great question. There's probably two components to this. So both of the programme business cases, so the original one and the cyclone corridor one, are in the NLTP for consideration by the board, and the decisions on that will be made by the end of August. They'll be coming out of the State Highway Improvements Activity Class, which I would just note the priority for investment of that is the roads of national significance. So it's highly subscribed. But it is in there, and everybody's work to date on both of those is fully supporting consideration of that. Kind of a supplementary part to this is what happens for budget 2025, for example, if we are to seek further Crown funding for ongoing rebuild work, be it for 5 or for 2. And I think that's something that we need to consider as a region and potentially with your regional recovery agency, and also as well as an RTC. And NZTA are also considering what a further budget bid for recovery would look like. So there's probably a bit more planning and to be joined up to seek Crown funding to do, but we'll get some certainty on if we're able to attract any further NLTF funding very shortly. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And we have invited through the RRA the board chair of NZTA to come and see us. I need to follow up and see if we've had any feedback on that invitation for him to hopefully drive the road and understand how critically important it is to our region. So I'll follow up on seeing how we can advocate strongly to him as one of the considerations. And just another question, Linda. I mean, I drove the road last weekend, and then I had 6 complaints the weekend before after our storm, and I understand it's a very challenging time to be repairing roads with the constant rain that we have at the moment. But I had a number of people who are putting complaints into you for compensation, and I'm not sure if there's even a process to do that, but they've told me that's what they're doing. But I think that we need to be thinking about that resilience part of repairs and maintenance. And while we've got some parts of it really well on the State Highway 5, but there are parts that we're still trying to patch up in the winter that still, are exposed. And so it's how we work in, autumn and spring and summer to actually get these roads properly repaired, rather than what we have to go through in the winter with, people falling into large potholes because we have a storm event. And the storm event a couple of weeks ago was a normal winter event. It wasn't a cyclone. So, we just have to be thinking more of our long-term resilience maintenance plan, better than perhaps we are. Just a comment. Thank you, Chair.
Great comment, noted. Just reassurance, there is process for compensation, so that will get managed through by our contractors. It's a point very well made, and I think it speaks to the fragility of the network overall, but also as well the historical levels of underinvestment that we've seen right across the state highway network. I would note that the government and their GPS does place as their second priority improving the state of the asset, and we've seen the levels of investment through the pothole prevention activity class as well as the operations activity class. It's much stronger than a desire. Their intent and requirement for us to uplift the state of the state highway network, and also as well to do that at pace and deliver real value for money for every dollar that we're putting in. So noted, Mayor Hazelhurst, and I'm pretty certain that we're all going to be required to demonstrate some real tangible progress towards that over the next 3-year period. Moving on.
Councillor Taylor.
Hi, thank you. My laptop is no longer connecting with this, so I can't check up where this is on the agenda, but it's in the Hawke's Bay project updates, the low cost, low risk State Highway 2 Havelock North to Waipawa alternative route to State Highway 2. It starts along Middle Road, starts in Hastings but finishes in CHB. And NZTA have indicated they've discussed it with HDC, but I believe from Mr McKinley that there's been no discussions with CHB to this to date, and I just would ask if that could be checked up on and for us to be involved, for the CHBDC to be involved with those discussions, Linda.
Yeah, happy to. I'll action that. I know that we've identified that HDC are doing a area-wide pavement treatment, so we're just trying to coordinate that. But yes, I'll definitely pick up on that we need to link in with you, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I think it was while you were away, but I have brought it up before, so I would appreciate you following it through. That'd be great. Thank you.
Done.
So Linda, just picking up on Mayor Sandra's comment about State Highway 5, and without sugarcoating the pill, is the reality that in a constrained budget, if there is a choice to be made between funding of State Highway 5 and the expressway, or State Highway 2, Waikato Gorge and the expressway will win because it's a road of national significance.
Yes.
Right, so I think we need to understand that that's the trade-off here, 6.5 kilometres of tolled road versus state highway improvements, and we're dreaming if we're thinking we're going to get both within the budget that seems to be available under the NLTF GPS. So just bear that in mind. We've got a lot of work to do, Mayor Sandra.
I might jump us on to the last few slides. I feel like we've kind of covered much of this, but there's one titled The Recovery Work with a map on the right-hand side. That just reiterates what was announced in Budget 2024, confirming further recovery work for the state highway network across Tairafti and Hawke's Bay, noting the recovery is to return the state highway network to its pre-cyclone level of service. The programme is currently being worked through to be confirmed, and we'll be able to share more details with you as that is firmed up over the coming months prior to the construction season. I would just note, to pick up on the Chair's point, that within that recovery work there is funding for a replacement bridge to the Bailey Bridge that's currently at Waikari Gorge. There is not funding for a realignment in that recovery package. We are and have included a realignment bid into the NLTF, but noting that that is highly oversubscribed and hugely competitive against the roads of national significance. We have briefed our Minister on the options, the costs, risk and opportunities of replacing like for like versus realignment, and we're waiting to hear whether there may or may not be any further Crown funding available for a further investment into that section of the State Highway.
And just a note on that, we've all written as mayors and the chair to the minister strongly advocating for the realignment option over a replacement bridge for the Bailey Bridge, saying save your money, spend it on that, even if we have to wait, was the message. Thank you, Linda. We keep interrupting, but this is important stuff.
Okay.
Councillor Kerr?
My understanding is the replacement of the bridge in the gorge is out of a different pocket of money, because that's Crown funded, being
Recovery.
replacement of like for like cyclone rebuild. In your discussions, is the opportunity to take that piece of money as a discount off the cost of the realignment, or are they completely separate conversations?
That would be a decision for the Minister and for the Crown, because that is Crown funded, how they would want to supplement or offset any investment from the NLTF in using that. I would just note that the Crown as well is under significant financial pressure. So any opportunity to offset the overall cost would be welcomed, but no, that's not even our decision. Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just have to say it because I hear it in the community that, as we've spoken, that would be simply a dumb, short-sighted decision to rebuild a bridge in the bottom of a gorge that's washed out and the gorge washes out. So I just needed to say it, but I know that we're all individually in agreement with that.
Noted.
Carry on.
Slide 11, this is an update on the TRIC, so your long-term rebuild business cases. So just to make that quite clear, just an update on where they're at. So the State Highway 5 Topo to Napier Corridor Resilience Business Case, that has already been endorsed by the NZTA board back in April. It has gone in through the State Highway Investment proposal into the NLTF for consideration for funding. We don't have confirmation of if we'll get any funding as yet. State Highway 2 business case for the Devil's Elbow specifically, we are targeting completion of that business case, so to wrap it up and get it into the NZTA board for their September meeting for endorsement. It as well is included in the State Highway Investment proposal, and again, we have not secured any funding as yet for that. And it's exactly the same for the State Highway 25 Eskdale business case. We are wrapping that business case up, so completing it. Go to the September NZTA board meeting for endorsement, and it's in the State Highway Investment proposal to see if we can secure all or any funding for that through the NLTF. And then the last slide is just to reiterate where does this leave us for the long-term rebuild, so beyond the recovery work at the moment. So you'll all be well aware that no, we were not successful in securing funding through Budget 2024 for the rebuild projects. As I say, they're included in the NLTP to try and seek funding there. Noting that it is oversubscribed and priority is for roads of national significance. The positive part to this is, though, is that we have full business cases that the community and the region have fully inputted into and support. We'll have them endorsed by the NZTA board, and they are there and ready to go. So to the point from Mayor Hazelhurst earlier, what do we do at this point moving forwards with them? What is our plan as a region and as an RTC, both NZTA and also within local government, to attempt to secure funding for those in the future? So be that through Budget 2025 or through any other Crown funding that may become available.
Right, Linda, what do you mean by rebuild projects? Is that those?
That's those 3 business cases
That's
I
the 3
just
business
mentioned,
cases.
like the Devil's Elbow one or your corridor one.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
And that's me.
Other questions, please?
Any other questions?
We're good, actually. We should, well, Ross is here, good, so he's
He's
been
here.
here on this. We'll be hearing from Ross soon, so that's great. Councillor Kerr, fire away.
Speed limits.
Yes.
Is the new rule in effect now? If we have a school that wishes to change the speed limit variable outside their space and it aligns with the current, as in the new rule, can we proceed?
No, I would strongly recommend don't.
Okay.
Until the new rule is fully confirmed, you do run the risk of, given the wealth of submissions, there could be potential changes to what's out. So you would run the risk of investing and having to revert.
Thank you. And a couple of really positive comments. It was delighted to read under the summer maintenance and operations that we were 100% complete in the maintenance and operations space. And also that the significant improvement in communications to the community of Tutiara and beyond has been impressive. From locals not knowing what the beep is going on, to regular texts, to warnings before a weather event, to regular emails. I'm not sure that it is at the point that is described in here with regard to traffic management and managing the school bus, etc. But a vast improvement. So please, I do pass it into the local team, but it'd be great if you were able to acknowledge as well.
Thank you. And thank you for your help.
Yeah.
And Mayor Hazelhurst.
Yeah. And one further question. I'm concerned that with the rebuild, what we thought was funded straight after the cyclone, change in government, new GPS, different funding, budget 2024, change in funding, the uncertainty that's having on contractors. Now, that's not me speaking to them, I don't talk with them, but just as an observer, I am really concerned that we did have was it a $250 or $350 million project that we're going to go and rebuild better, and now it's been squeezed, and now there's even lack of certainty around funding as we wait for the NLTF, I think is the right phrase.
It's a really important point to bring up and for us to all be really aware of. I think post-cyclone, we were all in a state of build back better, and many of our businesses were looking at opportunities to invest in their business, invest in their people, and get ready for a lot of work that was potentially coming. We are now in quite a different world. We had about 350 million on the East Coast, and we secured about another 250 million, which is not small levels investment, but it's not the multi-billion dollars that perhaps we were all very hopeful for. And we've got them joining us later. They might speak a little bit to this. The TREC team do work very closely with the contractor market. They hold regular contractor HUIs to try and give them good line of sight of the programme of work that's coming up and how they can tender and be involved in that. but noting that it is not the substantive rebuild work that we were all expecting, and there will be an impact on the business community for that. I would just say, though, that we will still have, the Hawke's Bay Expressway coming online. There is the ongoing work on State Highway 5 beyond just the recovery work. There will be the large pipeline of work for local government as well. I think probably the critical thing is for us to align and get those programmes aligned so that we can give the business community some certainty of what is or isn't coming up. It's a difficult one.
Through, just follow up on that. So are we all working together? Is Hastings and Trek and NZTA working in a way that is coordinating and giving contractors 10-year pipelines of work as opposed to a huge bulge over the next 3 years where we're scrabbling to have enough machinery and manpower and then it winding down?
I would say it's better than it was 12 months ago, but it's not as good as we need it to be.
That's good, at least we're aware of it. And one final question. Regarding the roads of national significance and the 4-lane of the expressway, you spoke about the business case needs to be funded via the NLTF.
Yep.
Is that not funded via the... I'm trying to understand. The GPS said they were funded. Help.
The GPS lists the roads of national significance that it wants to have included as priorities within the NLTF. The board has the ultimate decision on what is funded through the NLTF within the ranges of each activity class. So it would be an overreach for the minister and the government to direct the board what they can and can't fund,
right.
But they have indicated their priorities as well as the kind of tranches or how they would expect them to be rolled out within that funding envelope. So the board has the ultimate decision as to the quantum of funding, but it's been made quite clear to our board chair through the GPS and our minister their expectations.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you for those questions.
Thank you. Any more? Done.
Any other questions? Welcome, Daniel. Thank you very much. Do we move that we receive the paper?
Happy to.
And I'll second that. Any other comments? Api,
Yes,
did you have a question?
Chairman, I did have a question.
Apologies.
We have some major work being done on our road, Farndon Road. That's between Pakowhai and Farndon Road. It's going to be amazing when it's finished. But who do we give credit to? Is that funding that comes through Waka Kotahi to the Hastings District?
Just a little bit, but these guys do the
So
legwork.
it's on you.
I will pass on your compliments.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so, yeah.
I'm sure Jag's online and will have heard that. Thanks, Jag.
Yes, I did. Thank you.
For you, Mr. Chairman, it was also funded through the IAF.
All right.
Thank you.
Ross, do you want to come up now? I think you're next on the agenda. Any other questions on Linda's paper, just to close that out? So thank you, Api. And I've moved that be received. I think it was seconded by Councillor Kerr. All in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? Okay, that's carried. All right, welcome, Ross. And I think it's a good segue from what we've just heard. Lots of interest about recovery, rebuilding, improving expressways, other corridors. What would you like to share with us today in terms of an update on your agency's work?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kia ora tātou. Good morning, everyone. Really, I was just going to give a brief update on the progress and work being done around the local roads funding. Just to recap on the work we've done before, or shared with you before, roughly $1.1 billion worth of damage to the local roading networks through Cyclone Gabrielle across Wairoa, Central Hawke's Bay and Hastings District. And some of the bridges between Napier and Hastings. That's been responded to in the first sort of 18 months with funding through NZTA in the initial response phase and the initial recovery work, probably in the order of 150, 160 million and going up. There was also 250 odd million negotiated through the North Island Weather Event Crown Funding Agreement last year alongside the flood protection and property buyout work. And then the focus has been on the sort of 700 odd million in damage remaining that's not funded so far. So some good work on behalf of the region, led by the mayors and Matariki Governance Group, that with ministers to advocate for a funding program for that work. That was came through as represented in the budget for the remainder of the 23-24 financial year and the 24-25 financial year. Funding provided in the budget for 24-25 of about 280 million for NIWI Crown funding for those NIWI weather events, for local road funding. And I think, Linda, the initial indication from NZTA material was about 91 million of that earmarked for Hawke's Bay, but still with the assessment and allocation process to be worked through.
Right.
So we're now very much in the phase of working alongside NZTA and their investment advisors at the Minister's request in that assessment of the program, working up the program in more detail and looking at assessing the projects and allocating funding towards that for that first year. The Minister also requested that we work with NZTA investment advisors on the longer multi-year program because he's indicated he wishes to go back to budget 25 with a multi-year program. He doesn't wish to go back every year. So we will be working on that as well. We did put up a program to the Minister in April, which was an indicative program out over about a 7 to 10 year period. And that is the basis of the work we're doing now. And had a really good session with Paul Murphy and Sarah Sarah Grant from NZTA just this last week, and working at both an individual council by council level to get the detail of their program, but also collectively across the councils with the teams as well. So early days, but that seems quite positive to date. And obviously conversations continue around some of the state highway issues. As you noted, Mr Chairman, a letter's gone just following on from the Minister's meeting last month with the mayors around the, what the way forward for the Waikari Gorge area might be, just giving wholehearted support for the Minister in reconsidering whether the realignment might be possible. So thank you to the mayors and yourself, Mr Chairman, and the Regional Council Chair for bringing that letter together. So that was probably the key points I wanted to touch on today. Councils are working well together. Obviously, the events of Wairoa a fortnight ago, we're just trying to ascertain whether there is additional damage to the roading network coming out of that. But that's a work in progress.
Thank you, Ross. And I note just so everyone's benefit, I've got a track change of the RLTP here, which has now got a very detailed breakdown, several pages of all of the specific projects that make up the 1.1 billion of projected repair work that we're going to need to build our way out of this recovery phase. What you were saying to us, Ross, is the 91 million is just for this year, and I think you'd share with me that pretty much would cover what we'd planned and would be able to do this year anyway. And the idea is to put in front of the Minister a longer term program so that he's got something in mind, 25, 26, 27,
Correct.
knows what's coming at his end as well.
Yes, we gave a very indicative program of how that was broken down for the first 4 years back in April. And that is exactly the process, is to try and just get more detail as to that program. I do have to say the councils are working well together in providing information, and really want to also thank Bryce and Katrina. But Bryce is making sure there's a very strong link between that work that's going on, and it's reflected in the RLTP and their regional process. So that joining up is working very well.
Yeah, and that 4-year program, I think you essentially presented that to us during the submissions period.
Yes.
Tables with the bespoke and the enhanced FAR funding required.
Yeah, and there's still obviously discussions to be had around the bespoke component. If it's in NLTF funding, that's usually a board decision, but this is Crown funding that's been provided into that sort of pool of funding. So we're just working through what the process is around considering those issues, because obviously for most of the councils, the speed of the program will be determined by how far local share has to stretch and the level of funding above the FAR plus 20%.
Thank you. Other questions for Ross? All right, well, look, you're welcome to stay, Ross, because we've got Daniel there. I think he's going to be speaking to the Trek update. Is that right? And
I think
it might be a conversation that you're also wanting to be part of, or you're welcome to stay for, or you can head off if you've got other things to do.
I think Dr. Pete was catching my eye before and watching this evening.
Can't do that.
I can hang about for a bit, but thank you.
No, thank you very much for sharing your time for the work you're doing and keeping us coordinated in the Minister's ear. It's a great outcome for this year.
I would just answer Councillor Hazelhurst's question before. We have had a positive response back from Mr. Bridges, the chair of NZTA, about a visit, and I think it's just a matter of scheduling now. So
Quite.
Lovely.
awesome. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross.
So I think Scott was
Scott.
not up to the Trek update.
All right, well, welcome, Scott. I apologise, I wasn't aware you were online as well. So we're in your hands, and we're very grateful to have you in our midst. Are you struggling to hear us?
no, I'm perfectly. I can hear you perfectly fine. Thank you. Welcome.
We can hear you.
Thanks for the
So
welcome.
the floor is yours, and you've got about 20 minutes, if you need it, to give us an update on the Trek rebuilding work at this stage.
Yeah, will do. Thank you. So there's a presentation there. Have you got that up on your screen in the room?
No,
We haven't, but we've got the slides in our.
Oh, okay.
We have them, and if you could just tell us which one you're speaking to, and we'll go through that. Can you share your screen?
Would you like me to? Sorry.
Can you share your screen?
I can do.
Item 9.
And it's on your attachments rather than in the agenda.
Just confirming you want me to do that?
If you're able to.
Yep.
Sorry to put you on the spot like that. I wouldn't be able to cope.
No, that's okay. And apologies, I would have been there in person, but I've got pneumonia, so just coming out the back end of that, and not up to travelling, but yeah, feeling a bit better. Okay, so this is your pack. The first few slides. Oops, I'll have to go like this. The first few slides, just an overview of pictorially and in bullet points of what we've been up to in the month. There's about 35 sites active at the moment in Hawke's Bay, and on average we look to have about 30 recovery sites on the go at any one time. Moving forward, our recovery scope in the Hawke's Bay, the overall duration that is for about another year, all up. You'll see the last bullet point there about travel times. We know we're under we have been underperforming in terms of serving that community well. From Tūtira to Napier, we are lifting the lid on that, and we've got a working group in place, and we're trying to do everything we can to improve travel times and reliability for the communities. I'll keep moving unless there's questions. I guess it's a bit hard for me to see, but if there's any questions, can someone just yell at me?
Through you,
Wave at
Mr.
me.
Chair. Just the comment regarding Trek has established a time travel working group. Last time I spoke to the community, they were a little disillusioned with that, given the meetings were held when they were trying to take children to and from school. So if you can just, I'll work from the community up. If you can just work from your end down and just make sure that really is meeting the community's expectations, please.
We'll do. Yeah, we've had some issues. We've had a subcontractor underperforming. It hasn't helped. So yeah, we definitely will. We're definitely trying our very best on that one. And yep, we'll do.
And through
collaborate with you as best we can.
I don't know if you heard earlier, but your Trek communication team are doing a really good job of their very best to communicate effectively as they can, and it is noted and is appreciated. So they have the connections into the community. I think it's just a case of not just telling them what's happening, but gathering them to listen to them. So it's a conversation. Yeah, well done.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. And we're commencing night works next week, I believe, for three nights in a row. The idea there is to, disrupt the network or stop the traffic flows at night, and do the most of our work in the evening, and then free up the road to road users in the morning from 5 a.m. Some more sites there on State Highway 2, just a list of those there that we're working on in a month. Not really much to say about those. It's just a mix of sort of underslips and retaining walls, etc. And on 38 as well, 50, 51 and 2. Yeah, and 5. A little bit of work up 5. Majority of our work's on State Highway 2, and some images there. The type of work that we're undertaking. Yeah, this from here on a bit more meat on the bone here. So we've got our additional 250 million. That's now we've got now a full program. That 250 as it came with an instruction to allow for Waikare Bridge replacement online and Mangahuini Gorge up in Te Rāwhiti, recovery style project. Mangahuini was to be a major project. Waikare was in as a bid for the major realignment. Current status is that those two are to be recovery funded. We've spent about 220 million to date, and there's about 380 to go on that sum total of the 384 plus the 250. So yeah, around about 18 to 22 months of work.
Through you, Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, please. Yes, by all means.
The allowance for Waikare Bridge replacement on the current alignment, holding off doing that as long as possible, yet not putting the access way being the Bailey Bridge at risk, and waiting for hopefully a positive response through the NLTF for funding of a realignment. Just interested in how long we can hold the Bailey Bridge on site, given its vulnerability to a wash away.
Yeah, I've just going to zoom forward. I think I've got an entire slide on that one coming up. Could I just come back to that in a second?
Thank you.
Okay. So I think it's 3 or 4 slides away, but I'll come back to it. M&O works. This is interesting. Trix performed about $80 million worth of M&O work across Te Rāwhiti and Hawke's Bay in the previous year. That will normalise back to about 40 million, aligned with the pre-cyclone sort of level of operation M&O investment. So what that will mean is, we have recovered the network to a sufficient level to return to pre-cyclone delivery standards. And for the work that has been, the M&O work that's gone to local contractors, that will drop now to sort of pre-cyclone standard levels of investment.
Yeah.
A little bit less work.
Just fire away, don't worry about that 3U chair stuff, just get into it.
Sorry, I haven't introduced myself. Tanya, Deputy Mayor, Hastings District Council. The area and the residents around Tūtera are part of my ward. Going back to the maintenance and operations, hearing that the funding's going to drop down to pre-cyclone levels of around 40 million is quite concerning, given that many of us acknowledge that the pre-cyclone maintenance operation funding was actually not sufficient to be able to maintain those state highways in a condition that some would say was not fit for purpose. Well, should be fit for purpose, but was not. So I'm actually really concerned to hear that the maintenance and operations dropping back.
Yep. And do we have Linda in the room? Is that you in the corner?
Yes.
Yeah. I think Linda will have to take that away, and with Rua, that's an NZTA question about the levels of funding that are being provided.
I might just jump in here and now. I think it's kind of the best way to say it is the priority on state highway maintenance of the asset. You're actually seeing an increased level investment across the region overall in maintenance through pothole prevention and also the operations alongside the recovery work. It's not all one pot, even though, that's not how the community experiences it. I think probably what's quite critical here is that there's new design standards, etc., they'll see an improved level of service. There is no, through the maintenance investment, there is no way that we can use that funding to improve the level of service beyond returning the asset back to the previous condition, so 2 lanes. So it's, on one hand, you're getting more and getting better, but on the other hand, it's not full rebuild and full resilience investment, is all I would say.
Yeah, thank you. I hear that there's other investments in the network, but that basic repairs and maintenance of, rather than patching a pothole to actually, whatever the technical term is, right, dig it up, mix it all up with concrete and reseal the wider area. Just want to make sure that we just don't fall back into the trap of patching potholes with hot mix till the next weather event. So I'll leave that with you, Linda. Thank you.
All right, better carry on. Get through, yeah.
So core recovery scope is returning the state highway to 2 lanes. Those underslips and overslips, we've got those slightly more complex sites being Waikato Gorge, which I'll come to in a second. The Alliance at the moment, post-budget announcement, is right sizing. So we've seen a sharp decrease in the size of the design team. The design team was mobilised for those recovery sites and had already commenced on the design of some of them to a low level, particularly Waikato Gorge, the realignment that is. But yeah, that design team sharply been right sized, and now the overhead, the management team is right sizing as well. That's actually completing this week. To date, of our construction works, 80% of our construction works are being completed by local contractors. So that's not including Downhagen and Fulton Hogan. Keep moving. Yeah, so there's the Bailey Bridge. So yeah, I think it was summarised well. We have a realignment project that may get funded. We have another instruction which is currently on hold in the Trek environment to replace that concrete bridge on the right hand side there with a new and modern one, but in the same place. In terms of how long could we hold that Bailey Bridge there, I think there's a picture of it there in the next one performing in the recent flood. That bridge performed well as it is, but if it is struck by either a vehicle or debris, so slash coming down that river, it will could very easily dislodge and can be lost downstream. The abutments are sound, and what would then happen is a replacement Bailey Bridge would have to be installed onto the abutments that are there now. But there is a possibility that bridge is lost if hit. It's quite right.
Scott, isn't that, just to interrupt you there, sorry, isn't that the point though, that if you were to put a replacement permanent bridge in that place, it could just as easily be smashed out as a Bailey Bridge, and a Bailey Bridge is easier to replace than a lot of sunk cost into a new structure?
No, we could rebuild a reinforced concrete bridge and design it to modern standards to withstand the horizontal loadings. So we could specifically design it to stay in place, but it would overtop, and it would attract slash, and it would close and need to be cleared. But it could be designed to modern standards and to withstand the horizontal load. That's the theory.
That's interesting.
We are not progressing with that design at the moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a follow up again from Tanya. The late June weather event, it wasn't a flood. It was a 3-day easterly. The rainfall that was held across the hill country was just normal for a weather event in winter. And I do get concerned when it's held up as a weather event. It wasn't. It was just 3 wet days.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, thank you, Bea. Business as usual.
Yeah, certainly, and you can see the level of the water there. It's nowhere near as the underside of the bridge. Of course, the Cyclone Gabriel event, the bridge is completely overtopped. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but a reinforced concrete bridge could be designed in this location to withstand the loads, albeit it would overtop. We're currently not progressing with that. The Bailey Bridge as it is vulnerable to impact, and a realignment solution would solve all problems and be a resilient and reliable route.
Thank
you. Any more questions on that before we?
Carry on.
Okay. Not sure if there's too many more. Just another. I think there's another couple of images. This is the north side of the Waikare Gorge. A route there that is being reinstated to 2 lanes. We are putting for this example, a timber wall in place. It doesn't have sort of 100-year life necessarily, but should the realignment come into play, then of course this route's no longer needed as a state highway. Yeah, I think this is the last one, just showing a performance of that culvert in flood, and positive work of clearing that culvert. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Any any more questions for Scott or Daniel? Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Daniel?
I've got a couple of slides if you'd like me to put them up about the rail.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
I'll hopefully do this. Have those come up? Okay.
Yes, thanks.
Yep, so I'll just quickly go through the 4 sections that the Palmerston North Gisborne line's divided into. So in Wairoa to Gisborne, that line section, there's still no proposed changes with that being mothballed at the moment. We've had some interaction with various stakeholders that have an interest there, and just Kirrell's, it's a consistent message that it will remain mothballed, and there's no plans for reinstatement there. On Napier to Wairoa, that there is no decision on that yet, so that's still a work in progress to get to a decision as to will it be a reinstated line, will it be mothballed, or would there be some other option? So I don't have any update for you on that one, sorry. But I do have some updates on south of Napier.
Daniel, Tanya here.
Yes.
When will we know the decision around the Napier North rail line reinstatement or not?
Yeah, look, really good question, and I don't have a time frame. I have hopes that in a few months there might be some more direction, but I don't have that time frame. Sorry.
When you do, if you do find out the when, can you just let us know, please?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, but then for south of Napier, in the Napier Hastings, there's the it's been reflected to me recently as to the name of the bridge. I actually call it Tutaikuri Waitangi Bridge, but others call it Awatoto. That temporary bridge opened last year. There is work to do on it as to will it either be altering the temporary repairs into being permanent, or building a whole new replacement bridge, and aspects of that are going to be certainty of cost and budgets, and so what QRL is able to afford there, noting it is involved with our insurance process, and what would a future bridge need. There are only 60 metres of the existing bridge were damaged, so there's 100 metres on either side of the 1936 bridge are still in place. And we've been getting into some detailed discussions with Hawkesbury Regional Council about flood levels and the potential plans around stop banks and such for the Tutaikuri and the Narororo. So there is work to happen on it. The line's open there, and we intend to keep it open. And it's what option is going to progress is a work in progress with Trek, and we'll be updating as we keep progressing that. The next piece. Yep. Okay. So where is the other work? We do have work between Ashurst and Pakipaki for doing damage repairs. I'm conscious that this is not all within the area of Hawke's Bay Councils, Hawke's Regional Council, and possibly this group. But I thought I'd just let you know, because the line only works for Hawke's Bay if all of the things to the south are working. So we've noted we've got 23 sites that we're looking at doing damage repairs on. Awatoto is obviously the largest, and Takapau Plains. North of that, there are only, I think where the council boundaries are, there's only around 4 medium to minor sites, but in the area between Dannevirke and Kopua, Dannevirke sort of Takapau, where we have all of our viaducts, and so the topography is a bit steeper and more full on. Got a cluster of, it's a bit over a dozen sites, so they're mainly slips and some scour around those viaducts. The viaduct structures aren't damaged, but it's the ground and the rivers around them. So that's an area of major work. And then there's some lesser sites in the Manawatu Gorge and south of Dannevirke, what we call the Matahiwi Bank. Will they all need works that will actually be publicly showing people what the work is? Some of them are that small, possibly not, but around that Dannevirke, Kopua area, yeah, we're definitely interacting with local iwi and with the councils and such via Trek. I'll just give a little bit of an update on other budget pieces that I'd mentioned previous, that we were looking at whether there was funding for doing resilience work to the line between Palmerston and Napier. So there was some potential for some ring fence funding. Pretty much near the start of this year, that was indicated that was far less likely to proceed, and the budget announcement confirmed that ring fence funding just for the Palmerston North to Napier line for resilience work, so doing stuff above and beyond what our insurance damage would cover. That's not the case. That funding, our ARNIP funding is available to the whole network, so there will be upgrades and such, and works continue on the line outside of this work, but it's not ring fenced. It's as it was in previous ARNIP years, and I'm a little bit new to this committee and presenting and the role Angus had, so I think it's possibly under item 10 that I might get asked to talk about that either today or in future. Yeah, I'll just pause there and see if there's any questions.
Any questions from the panel? I mean, the question Councillor Kerr asked is of keen interest to me, but
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a comment. Daniel, it's great to have you here.
yes, yeah.
Really, really appreciate the fact that you're here representing your organisation. Thank you.
That was going to be my comment. Thank you, Councillor Kerr. You've
Sorry.
stolen my thunder there.
I'll let you say.
No. I won't double down on that, but it is greatly appreciated because this is a huge part of our transport system, and we haven't really had a lot of line of sight to it in the last 2 or 3 years. So please do keep coming and bringing these updates to our table. They're highly valued.
Thank you, and I'll try to be there in person. I just didn't organise my calendar well enough today.
It's all kei te pai.
Future.
All right. Well, any other questions for Scott or Daniel? Okay, well, look, thank you both. Do we need to move that their reports be received? I remove that the report from the Recovery Manager, Ross McLeod, and the reports from Trek be received. Someone like to second that? Thank you, Councillor Mawson. All in favour?
Aye.
I didn't hear any, anyone against? No, great. Look, we are scheduled to have lunch now and then verbal advisory updates. I'd actually like to see if we can't finish the meeting before lunch so people can have a sandwich and then take off. But I don't want to cut you guys short. So if we allow another 10 or 15 minutes for that, I think we can get around everyone. Everyone happy with that?
Thank you. That would be great.
Okay. I'm going to start with Api. Api, anything you'd like to share with us from your rohi neck of the woods?
No,
world?
everyone's been pretty quiet on our front, so kia kaha mai, kia ora.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's head down and, extremely busy. Dave, AA.
Yes. First of all, we provided a submission, one of the many that went regarding the emergency works and FAR rating supporting local government. And the other thing that we've been looking at is congestion charging, adopting a policy on what that might look like, taking into account the experience in other parts of the world. Haven't concluded that yet because it's quite a work in progress, but obviously member organisation doesn't really want to pay anything, but clearly that's the way things are heading now that Auckland doesn't have a regional transport, a regional fund for a regional fuel tax, isn't it? So congestion charging is going to be something that we're going to have to deal with. So we thought it was a good idea to have a policy. And that's about me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Ian, there's life in the world of freight.
Thank you. No, well, I haven't got too much that hasn't been touched on this morning. I think all my questions and issues have been answered, but I'd have to reiterate Councillor Kerr's concerns about the current pitting and potholing on State Highway 5, and yet I see that the weather events we've had recently are just normal, what we'd expect there, and it did deteriorate quite dramatically over that 3-day period.
Really?
Yeah, it was quite noticeable. Whether it's the heavy traffic or whatever it is, it hasn't done that in the past, so I think we've got to get ourselves into a mode of where the maintenance is permanent rather than a sticking plaster to a degree. Yeah.
That's a good point. I mean, I've never seen so much action on State Highway 5 as I have in the last 12 months. So And compared to where we were at the end of, say, 2022, I think it's a different highway, but it's very sad. I'm actually heading over there this afternoon.
But there's been a lot of damage recovery from the cyclones, but I think we've got to be careful that what we do repair, we repair properly, rather than just putting a Band-Aid over it. And at this time of the year, once it deteriorates, you haven't got to show up putting it back to how it was. You've just got to keep sort of patching it until the weather comes right.
I think that message has been heard, so thank you for sharing that. Carry on.
That's it. Thank you.
All
Very
right.
informative meeting.
Angela, anything you'd like to bring to the table that's burning a hole in your pocket or of interest to you at the moment?
I guess we're focusing on our delivery for the next coming year. We have a bit of a planning year, mid-year to mid-year. So just setting the expectation for our people around what they need to be delivering. Part of that's the agreement with NZTA, which is close to getting signed off. To be fair, we actually hit the mark pretty well with, from a road policing perspective on what we're delivering on around their breath tests at high risk times, restraint offences and speed offences. We're targeting the road areas, the high risk roads. That's just maintaining our focus on that. So very much about just resetting where we're at for the coming year for our teams around our delivery of stuff to reduce death and serious injury. Within our road policing team, we've had a bit of a rotation of some of our leadership. So I've got a new serious crash detective sergeant to start this week, and next week road policing senior sergeant starting as well. So both very experienced, but from other parts of the business. So just ensuring we network and have those partner agency connections going on. I've already been meeting with Napier Hastings Council, people that I liaise with, to keep connected around the serious crash stuff. So that's very much my front of mind at the moment. It's just that handover and making sure we've got people connected. Thanks.
That's fantastic. Thank you for being here, Angela. Again, I know you're busy. It's great to have your ears and perspectives shared with us around this table. Bridget, yes.
I think the only kind of relevant update from the Health New Zealand perspective is we're in the final stages of preparing a regional sort of health and transport report. It focuses kind of, I guess, on just from a health perspective, what we see as the key sort of challenges and opportunities around improving air quality, physical activity, road safety, social connection and connection to healthcare. So we'd be keen to present that to this committee or at least distribute it to committee members when it's ready in the coming months.
Awesome. I look forward to hearing about that. And when you get that to a state of preparation, please do contact the staff, Bryce or Katrina, and organise a slot within the agenda.
Thank you.
Yep. Now, Councillor Curtis, do you have a question of Angela?
I was just going to make a positive comment to Angela with regard to her assistance in the Waikawa community when we had a bridge that was vulnerable. It was great that the police were able to certainly have an online presence and at times a physical presence up State Highway 2. So thank you, Angela.
Yeah, so just reiterating the importance of the partnerships and relationships. Just reach out. If there's things we can be doing, we will. Part of that's just knowing what's happening. So being connected. I think we can do a lot more across work, agencies as a whole, if we understand and communicate. So happy to be part of that. Thanks.
And once again, through you, Mr. Chair, part of my question to you earlier in the day regarding RoadSafe was working alongside you, knowing that you have road policing targets. Well, I'm not sure if they're targets, but you have your own methodologies and measurements that you need to attain. And with RoadSafe doing its work and this committee doing its work, are there things that we're missing as a collective across Hawke's Bay? So I'll have an online chat with you further and maybe with Bryce as well. So thanks, Angela.
Yep, there would be opportunity within like seatbelts and cell phone use that we might be able to think outside the square on how to get better education or prevention activities underway, as well as enforcement, being a bit more joined up on those ones. Our staff are primarily deployed to the highways, so some of that stuff we can't do so well. But we need to deliver, so we've got to come up with some interesting ways of doing that. So yeah, we'll talk offline about that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the last item on the agenda, or do I need to move that those reports be received?
Sure.
Do I have to?
Please? No, you don't have to. I'll second.
Moved, seconded, all in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? Done. Thank you. Right, follow-ups. That's where I always get embarrassed.
This was good, good and good.
Okay, that seems to be all in order and in hand. What do we need to do about that, Leanne? Can someone save me that?
Notes that you can
Okay.
move and second that we receive that.
Okay,
I'll move.
it's just second, all in favour?
Aye.
Done. Thank you. That brings the meeting to a close, and I'd like to thank everyone for their close attention today to matters transport in this region, which are so important to the wellbeing of our communities, and particularly to our councillors and advisory representatives who've taken the time to be here. And to our staff for getting this meeting ready and all the work that's done. I had raised with the staff that I was keen to actually have one of these in Central Hawke's Bay and to have one of these in Wairoa.
Right.
The problem is it's simply not, it's just too much of a logistical exercise. And on our budgets at the moment, we're lucky to get lunch, although we have. It really isn't something we can ask our ratepayers to fund. So what I'm instead proposing is that, say, in September and then the December, we have a Wairoa and a Central Hawke's Bay focus with particular agenda focus on the needs of those districts. But it will need to be here. Leanne could explain to you, we went up to Wairoa a couple of years ago for a meeting, and it was just a huge travelling roadshow exercise, so that's where we've landed with that. All right, could I ask Api to close us, please, and send us on our way?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Perhaps a karakia kai.
I'll start with a short prayer. Would you like to finish with the benediction when we?
Sure.
Okay, good. Good, everyone. Thank you for all those wonderful reports, everyone. Very informative. So, ngā mihi hoki kia koutou. Kia pai o koutou wā whakatā. Have a good weekend. Come on the All Blacks. Let us pray. Mati atua tātou e manaki e tiaki i a rahi roto tōna rangi Māori e tēnei rangi me ngā rā e heke mai nei. Nā reira, e inoi mātou e runga te ingo te matua, te tamaru e te wairua tapu. Āmane. Kia ora.